Hello, everybody, beautiful souls. Welcome to the ABCs of Preschool with Miss Amber. It is a beautiful, gorgeous morning here in Northern California as I sit here. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how to choose the right preschool for your little one, for your child. This show actually there's going to be some tips in here of how I would choose a preschool and then how I operate my preschools. Because I want parents to choose my school. So this episode could really serve, I think, educators, owner directors, and parents. And it's a really important question, like how to choose the right preschool or child care center. A lot of times you may feel pressure from friends and to put your child into a certain school. Currently, right now, I have a school in a community that is, I've never actually experienced this, but it's in a community that is highly, highly Montessori based. I mean, the amount of schools that are Montessori based, and then the elementary school that everybody wants their kids to go to is Montessori based. So, as we start to dive in on how to choose a preschool, I think the first priority is always to recognize the needs of your child. That's your baby. You know them like through and through. You know what they need. You know how they thrive. So when you walk the path of checking off schools and touring, really focus on your child's needs and not what everybody else is doing. I think that's probably my first advice. I am a mom. I have raised my 4 kids, and all of my kids were really different. And so at one point, raising my kids, I was carpooling to, I think, 3 different schools because that's what my kids needed at that time. So even if you're a parent of multiples, so say you have 3 kids, that same school may not work for your younger kids. So I think um, the first goal would be to just look at your child and see, like, what do they need? Are they super social? If they're really, really social, they are just, they are asking to go to school, they want to go to school, then they're totally ready. They want to go to school. So they would probably do really well in like a bigger size classroom with a couple more teachers. So as you go through this process, which you're focusing on your child of what they need, and then the timing of the year too. A lot of people, I don't think, realize, let's say maybe you're a stay-at-home mom or you work part-time, so you're not looking for full-time care, you're actually looking for part-time care. A lot of schools start filling up the year before for the following year. So for example, my schools, Loving Start Learning Centers, we do our fall enrollment in January. So this is January. This is why I think it's a really good month to talk about how to choose a preschool. There's always like an inflow of new students, usually in January and August. My schools currently stay full, but what we do is we enroll. So if you want to start school in the fall of 2024, let's say you want your little one to start preschool the fall of 2024, what you would do is you would start calling around schools now, start touring schools, because a lot of schools do fall enrollment months prior to school starting. So my school, we start our fall enrollment. So all of our current families have priority registration. I don't care if they've been with us 5 years earlier and then they have a little one coming in. Anyone who's been a part of our Loving Start family always has priority. So we start with our current families first. We get all of our kiddos, our little ones, enrolled into the right classes for that next year, and then we open it up to the public. And so a lot of new families, new parents have no idea about that. So I would say start your research a little bit early. And then I have some families mamas that call when they're pregnant and we're like, okay, well, call us in a couple years. Every school does enrollment a little bit different. So some schools enroll infants through kindergarten. I have one of my centers is we take babies 6 weeks and kids through kindergarten. One of my schools, we just start at 2 through kindergarten. So you're going to find the school that actually, if you need infant care is really, really hard to get into. Not a lot of schools provide infant care. So if you are pregnant and if you are having a baby, and if you're planning on going to work full time, I highly recommend doing your research while you're pregnant. Is probably a really good idea, or right when you had your baby. But typically, like right now, our waiting list is like 6 to 7 months, hit or miss, for our infant room. The ratios in the infant room are smaller, meaning, well, the good centers, I mean, you don't want a lot of babies. You want a small, really intimate infant program because you want those babies to be just loved and hugged and cuddled. And I know my staff just, it's one of my favorite rooms to be in, to cuddle and hug those babies. So if you are pregnant and you need infant care, I highly suggest you start looking around touring schools, sooner than later while you're pregnant, maybe when you just have the baby, because there is waiting lists for those schools. For preschool, if you just want preschool programs, start calling around. If you are looking for the fall, so say like it's January, this month is January, and if you're looking for next year, this is a really good time to start calling around and going and touring schools. Because like I said, like my own school, we do fall enrollment months prior to the school starting. If there's openings, a lot of schools, a lot of preschools, a lot of child care centers, if there's opening, you can enroll all year long. So say you've been staying at home and you're like, okay, I need to go back to work. There's a lot of schools that you can enroll anytime during the year as long as there's an opening. Um, so let's talk about touring schools. Like what should you be looking at when you're touring a school? Typically, when you're going to go look at a child care center, you want to make an appointment. Um, you may read a lot of blogs, which is fine. I think any school should be prepared. If you're an owner of a school or a director, um, like me, I've been owning, since 2001. I am prepared. Our schools are always prepared for walk-in tours at any moment, always, for sure. So, like, the school should be welcoming and people pop in all the time. That's super normal. However, I totally recommend making an appointment. And the reasons are, when you make an appointment, the director can really focus in on you and your child and your needs. They can do like a tour, walk you around. They can answer questions. It's just preschool, the preschool world, the childcare world is organized chaos. And every day is very different. I think that's the most exciting thing about this job, is that every day is completely different. So when we do have walk-in tours, sometimes we cannot give you enough time to really show you around because a director might be giving teachers breaks. A child might be melting down. However, a child might be melting down when you come to tour. Sometimes that's normal. Kids, just like us, have easy days and hard days too. But I would say then really making an appointment for a school is going to give you the best opportunity to really look at that school fully. Make sure when you go on the tour, um, I think I always say to everybody that I've given tours to go with your gut. You want to how do you feel when you walk in? How do you feel interacting with the staff? How do you feel? What does it smell like? What does it look like? It's like your five senses. I'm a huge believer, my staff knows, on my school smelling really good. There's a typical smell in childcare centers and preschools that I despise. So you want to feel all of it because you want to feel good. You want to really like what you see. It should smell good. It should sound good. I love music at my centers. I We have music going on all the time. I think music is just brings in happiness and joy. Is the director smiling? Is the director welcoming? Like, those are all things that you wanna really look at. Um, on the reverse end, as a director or an owner operator running tours, like, how are you presenting yourself to your clients? And it's a real fine balance because you never those of us running the tour do not wanna sound like, a used car salesperson. So even when I was doing tours for long years and years, I would always say, I don't wanna sound like a used car salesman," but sometimes I'd be in positions where I would have to say, "I only have 1 spot, so you need to let me know right away." So you really want someone communicating with you on your tour that's open and honest and doesn't sound salesy, if that makes sense. Um, so those are like 5 senses. Really, really feel it out. Listen to your gut as you tour. Typically, schools that are organized and know what's going on will give you a parent handbook and a tour packet. Like our school, we have little goodie bags for the kids. We have tour packets. So you want to make sure you're given the proper. There should be like a parent handbook with all the school's expectations, philosophy, just kind of like the rules, and not even rules, but like the parent handbook just has everything outlined that the school offers. The pricing, you should have a pricing sheet. So I think when you're choosing a school, you want to make sure you're going to a school that actually provides those things, because you know that on the back end they've got their stuff together and they're really organized. Um, that's typically how our tour works at a school, and then, you can sign up that day, you can go home. Most people go home, they think about it. I always say, "Go home, let us know if you have any questions, and then just call us or email us back," or get on a waiting list if we're full, things like that. But you wanna go see the bathroom, the playground. If you have an infant, you wanna see the infant center, of course, the cribs, the nap room. Um, you wanna, like, meet teachers. Sometimes you can meet teachers, sometimes not. You usually just, like, walk through, like, the classrooms because the teachers are usually really engaged, but most of the time the teachers will stop and say hello. So that's typically how a tour works. But, like, how do you choose the right school? So I wanna step back again. So every child's very different. So you have like the really, really big centers, you have home-based preschools. I ran my preschool for 9 years in my family room that was separated from my home. So all the parents would come through the side. So it was like its own little one-room classroom. I ran successfully for 9 years that way. I had 12 kids in the class with 2 teachers. Does your child need like a really, really small group? So there's home-based preschools. The difference between home-based and centers a lot of times is education and extra requirements. So if you're looking at a home-based preschool, so many are amazing and awesome, but typically the state qualifications for that is not as rigid. So anybody could be teaching at the home-based school. There's no education requirements. They should be fingerprinted. So this is another thing when you're going to child care centers, know that everybody is fingerprinted. And even in home-based, they should be licensed through their state and they should be fingerprinted. So you do know that is a great thing, but they may not have early childhood education. They may not have previous teaching experience. Now, do not discount that, because I've always said forever, you may have someone with a master's in early childhood education that absolutely sucks and they just don't get it. And you may have someone with just the basics of early childhood education units and they are magical and they are amazing and wonderful. I have always been a firm believer in a person's vibe and how they come across, and their dedication trumps all of it. Because when you're working with kids, you need someone who loves deeply. And I mean, that's my belief in early childhood education is love is at the center of all of it. So you get to choose. You want a home version of a preschool or do you want a center? And the center just has a lot more qualifications. Just for an example, to the application to start a home childcare center or preschool is like, I don't know, maybe it's just such a small application. But when you're opening up a center, it is an hours and hours and hours and hours of application. There's just a lot more. The fire department's involved. There's just a lot more regulations. So that's kind of what you need to decide, a home versus center. And then ratios is really a big question when you're trying to choose the right school. Like, what are the school's ratios? And you want to make sure you walk into the classroom where it seems I like to say it is the organized chaos. That there is a lot of projects going on. Maybe there's music, there's projects at the table, there's art all over the wall. I'm a huge believer in art and getting messy. I believe kids need so many different modalities of learning. Like, again, going back to the senses, I'm huge on that of like, what are they touching? What are they feeling? What are they hearing? What are they smelling? All of that is just really good because every child, just like us as adults, every one of us learns really differently. So at our schools, we really try to provide so many different aspects of learning. So when you go into a classroom, you want to see that it's organized, it's clean, clean as clean can be. When kids are playing, they are using their imaginations, they're being creative, they're exploring. So sometimes the classroom is going to have toys everywhere, but are the kids happy? Are they engaged? Are they having fun? Like, all of those things are super, super important. So once you do that too, or you're gonna just kind of know yes or no. I do recommend going and visiting a bunch of schools to really get a good idea. We still to this day um sometimes pop into schools to see other our competition. So I think it's really important to just kind of see different schools and feel what are you feeling when you're going into those schools. I think it's really important because you're going to know how you feel and you're going to know like, oh, this is the right school. Um, Once you pick your school too, so a lot of times word of mouth is amazing. Um, my schools have run all these years, mostly majority with word of mouth. So when your friends are telling you about a school, that's a really, really good sign. But also, sometimes that school may not work because of your particular child. So ultimately, you have to follow the path that works best for your child. But typically, that's how it kind of works with choosing a preschool. We can also talk philosophies. So every school has a different philosophy. So when you're given a handbook, usually their mission statement, their philosophy, what they believe is in that handbook. There's and we'll go into this in different episodes, but like Montessori based, Waldorf, there's Emilio Reggio, there's play based, there's academic, there's religion based. So there's lots of different philosophies of preschools and childcare centers as well. Our school, Loving Start Learning Center, we believe in all the philosophies. I think the philosophies, all the greats that went before me are amazing. And as again, a mom of multiple kids who learned every one of my kids, like my two oldest, seemed to do really well in traditional school. My two youngest kids did not do so well in traditional school. So I had to flip the script a lot and change things up. So the different philosophies also is one to look at when you're looking for a preschool or a childcare center. What kind of preschool philosophy are you looking for? Now, going back again to this this pressure sometimes of trying to get to the it school. Sometimes in communities, there's schools that people have to attend. Sometimes you have to attend a certain preschool to get into the elementary school. And that's just where everybody's going. But I think as parents, sometimes we have to step back and think, is that going to be the right fit for my child? Or is it something I'm looking into because of the pressure and of all the rest of everybody doing. Um, for example, I mean, my own there was a school that opened up, and so I moved my first 2 sons into this neighborhood school that opened up. They did really well. Then my 3rd son went in and was doing okay. Then my daughter, and it was not a good fit for her. By 4th grade, we actually removed her from that school. Looking back, I wish I would have not followed the crowd and not followed what it's just easy once you get to a school, especially when you have multiple kids, that's just the path, right? Oh, well, all my kids went that way, so all of them are gonna go to this school. Well, looking back now, I wish I would have switched it up way sooner. That school was not the greatest fit for my younger 2. So, I regret not pulling them out and looking faster for the right school for them. But, live and learn. So, those are just kinda like the basics of learning looking for a preschool and a childcare center is really finding the right philosophy for you. What do you want your child How do you want your child to learn? And then how do they need to learn? So those are some tips. So philosophy, is the preschools clean? Is the childcare clean? Did you hear good things about the school? Do you get the warm fuzzies when you walk into the program, or do you feel like, like something's off? Like, really listen to that. And, there are off days in childcare centers. I've ran several, I'm not sure how many tours I've run over the years, but a couple times the tours went really bad because it was just rough days. So, but most of the time you should walk into like a clean program, organized, to a sense, organized chaos. But no, and kids engaged, kids laughing, kids happy. It should smell good. It should be clean. The teacher should be smiling and looking like they're having fun. Because this is a second home. I mean, if you're working full time and your child is in care, this is like a second home. That's something that I really firmly believe in as we set up our schools, as I set up even my own schools, how I've walked through the last almost, I don't know, 23 years opening up centers is it's a second home. And so that's what you should feel like when you come in. And know if you're in this position right now of having to, maybe you're having to go back to work and you are really struggling with this. Maybe you just had a baby and you're like, but you have to go back to work. I want you to know that your kids are so loved. I know in my centers, my staff are extraordinary and they give so much love to your kids. These teachers that are in early childhood education aren't there for the money. They're in there because they love your children and they're dedicated and they love, love, love what they do. So I want you guys to know, as parents who may be nervous about sending your kids to preschool, know that most good schools, the staff there love your kids and are truly dedicated. If you have a baby, I know, like, we are loving, we're kissing them, we are cuddling them, we're laughing with them, we're singing with them. If you've got toddlers, same thing. I know at my centers, we believe in hugs. We believe in like holding our little ones tight. Like, most of my team are moms. We Your kids are loved, and most schools staffing, they're in it because they absolutely are dedicated to this field. So I hope that makes you feel a little bit reassured. But those are just some of the areas to look for when you're choosing a preschool or childcare center. So to sum it up a little bit, if you are a new mom, if you're about to have a baby and you're going to go back to work while you're pregnant, I would do your research. Go and call around schools, go on some tours, and get your baby on a waiting list, because typically the infant centers are full. If you are wanting to enroll your child into like a preschool class, maybe they're turning 2, I would also go maybe 6 months, 7 months before they turn 2, start touring. Remember that some schools, a lot of the schools in this area, I'm in Northern California, we do enrollment January, February for the following year. So January is also just a really great time to start. Typically, my schools, if we have any room or wiggle room, I have a new school that I just launched, so we're still building up enrollment right now. January is also a really good time. I find a lot of people either start like in August or January is a good time. It's like the second half of the year. Um, so make sure you start prepping and looking and touring a little bit before you really need the care. A lot of schools won't hold your spot for months, but if there's a waiting list, at least you're getting your name on the waiting list and you're prepping. So those are some things when you go to actually tour, make sure they are really clear, they're communicative, they are providing you with all of the information you need on their philosophy, their pricing, their schedule. It's like they should have like a tour packet. I think that those things are really, really important. How does the school look? How does it smell? How does it sound? And how does it feel for you? How does your child reacting to the school? Do they seem to really like it? There's some little ones that no matter where you go, they're going to cling to you because they're scared. We'll talk about that in another episode of just the process of actually starting the school. But how does the schools look and feel, and what are you feeling when you are at the school is really big. And what does your child particularly need? What kind of philosophy are you looking for at a school? Montessori based is really kind of more independently taught. Waldorf is really nature and free and creative. There's some schools that are just all play. They just play, play, play. My school, we do a little bit of everything. We do it all. So yeah, what are you looking for? What's your philosophy? What do you want your child? How do you want your child to learn? So those are just some simple things. Do you want a home base? Do you want a center? And word of mouth is really great. What have you heard from friends? What schools have you heard are really, really good? So I hope that helps a little bit choosing the right preschool, the right childcare center. Um, yeah, and I just want you guys to know, again, just to reiterate, like, the good schools out there are gonna really love your kids. They're gonna really love on your kids, and they're gonna really, try to meet the needs of your kids. So, if you're scared, if you're nervous, just remember, those of us that are in this field, we're in it because we love what we do. So, happy hunting. Good luck finding that school. Wishing you an amazing week ahead. Remember, wish it, dream it, do it. Whatever your dreams are, they can happen. And have a fabulous week.